start with preparing our salmon, so take your fillets. We're gonna need about 2 of these fillets, and we're just gonna cut them into nice thin strips, just like that. And you can tell how fresh it is, it just cuts through so easily. Once you prepared your salmon, just set it aside. Next we're going to make our dough. In a small bowl, add your sugar, your fast action dry yeast and warm milk. Mix it all together, and we're going to leave this for about 15 to 20 minutes in a warm place to rise. In your stand mixer, add your egg, pinch of salt, your milk and yeast mixture with sugar, then melted butter. And we're going to mix this for a few seconds until it's all combined. Then I'm going to add my sifted flour and then mix everything together. I'm using a dough hook on just a medium speed. So mix everything until it becomes nice and doughy. This will take a couple of minutes, from 5 to 6 minutes, until your dough is nice and soft and elastic, and it should come off your dough hook quite easily. Just pinch it down. Add some flour onto your surface, and we're going to knead the dough for a few more minutes by hand. So just keep adding flour on top and at the bottom, and you will see how easy and soft this dough is. It's just a pleasure to work with. And then we're going to add some olive oil into a bowl and add our dough inside. Roll it a few times around and coat it from both sides. Then place a damp towel around and leave it in a warm place to rise or double in size. Next we're going to make our blinis or crepes or pancakes, whatever you want to call them. Add your eggs into the bowl with sugar and salt and whisk everything together for a few minutes until combined. Then we're going to add milk and sift our flour and just mix everything again with your whisk. The mixture is nice and smooth. Then add some oil and mix everything together. Add butter into your pan. You can also use oil. And we're gonna add about 1 ladle of our mixture and just move it about and around to make sure it's nice and even. And we're gonna cook our pancakes or crepes for about 1 to 2 minutes on each side, and just flip them around and make sure you do all of them and then set them aside to cool down. Next we're going to make our egg filling. So I have boiled 2 eggs in advance. I'm just gonna chop those up into nice small pieces and then add your eggs into a bowl. Next I'm going to chop my greens. I'm using parsley and dill, and again I'm doing fine chopping, and we're going to mix this together with our egg mixture. Next we're going to make our mushroom filling. We're going to start off with cutting our onions nice and fine, so chop the onions into small pieces. I'm using 1 large onion. Add oil into your pan. You can also add butter if you like. And then we're going to add our onions and fry them until they're nice and golden for about 5 minutes. Keep mixing them about so they don't burn. And then start chopping your mushrooms. And we're going to add our mushrooms into our onions. And we want everything to be nice and cooked together, all the water to evaporate, so the onion and mushroom mixture is done. Then we're going to set it aside as well to cool down. Add salt and pepper or any other spices that you like and mix everything together until it's ready. So right here I've got everything ready: my blini, my salmon, my mushroom filling, my egg filling and my boiled rice. Next we're going to prepare the pastry. So the dough has risen and doubled in size, and this is the second time that it happened. You can prove it once, but I do recommend you try and prove this twice, as it will be much softer and more delicious. So we're just going to punch the dough a couple of times, and you can see how soft and elastic it is. Add flour onto your surface, and we're just going to roll the dough out. I have pinched a little bit of the dough to use for my decorations, but the rest we're just going to roll it out into a nice square as much as you can. Just keep rolling that out and stretch out the pastry. Then I'm going to place the pastry onto my baking sheet. I'm using just parchment paper. It will be much easier to use and work on it later. Just add that inside. Next, we're going to assemble the pie, which is my favorite part. I'm going to add blinis, so start adding blinis on each side. We're going to add about 3 blinis on each side. We want to cover the sides and the pastry as much as we can, and make sure that the blinis are also in the pastry inside in the middle. So you will need about 6 blinis or so. Then we're going to add our egg and green filling. So just add that as a first layer right in the middle, and we're going to use all of it. Then we're going to add our mushroom and onion filling just on top. Then we're going to add our rice. Again, we want to make sure everything is in the same square, so just keep adding the mixture until everything is finished and lined up. Lastly, I'm going to add my fresh salmon, and I've chopped it even into more cubes. You can leave the stripes if you want to, and just add salmon. You can add more salmon if you really love salmon. Just add it on top everywhere. Then we're going to season it with salt and pepper. You can use other spices if you like, but this is traditional. And we're going to start wrapping the pie with our pancakes first. So just using the crepes, just wrap around from both sides and make sure it's kind of sealed, or as much as you can seal it. Then we're gonna move our pastry. This is why it helps using parchment paper, because it's quite easy. And we're gonna seal all the ends together, and we're gonna go over the pancakes. So the pastry might be a bit tender on the edges, but that's fine. Just as long as you can seal so there are no edges or holes. So just press it down and make sure it's nice and sealed. Then I'm gonna add our pie onto a baking tray, and using both hands just gently flip it around, and so it doesn't break, and we want to turn it around this way. Now I'm gonna use the rest of the dough to cut out decorations. Now I love playing around with dough and creating different forms and shapes, so use your imagination and do whatever you like. I have used some of my cookie cutters for different decorations like stars and flowers and lucky charms, I guess. I'm not sure which one that is called. If you know, leave the comment down below and let me know. Once your decorations are done, just place them on top of your pie. You can use a little bit of water so they stick to the pie, and just decorate as you wish. I'm using egg wash, which is just egg yolks with some water, and I'm gonna make sure that the whole pie is covered. So just lightly dip it and cover the pastry in the beautiful egg wash. Once it's done, we're going to make 2 cuts at each end of the pastry, and this is to ensure that the steam can come out when the pie is baking. We're gonna bake our pie for about 30 to 35 minutes at 200 degrees Celsius or 400 Fahrenheit. If you see that your pie is starting to burn, you can always add some foil and just keep cooking. Once your pie is done, leave it to cool down for 15 minutes, cover it with a towel, and then it's ready to eat. Look at this beautiful golden salmon pie with fresh ingredients, homemade pastry. Let's check it out, how it looks inside. You can see all the layers perfectly wrapped in a pancake and then in the dough. This pie is so delicious, it's perfect for eating. First thing we're going to do, we're going to activate our yeast. So add 1 teaspoon of your dry yeast into your bowl. Add the sugar, because yeast feeds on sugar. And lastly, I'm adding warm milk. It has to be warm, not hot and not cold. This will activate the yeast. So we're just going to put half of that in there. Take a large bowl, add your egg, and we're going to add all the ingredients together. Melted butter and milk, and the yeast milk. Now mix all together with a spoon. Add sour cream. Grease it around, and this is to help the dough to rise. Move it around just to make sure it's greasy on all sides. Cover it with a damp towel, and we're going to leave it to rise for about 1 hour. Add your onion, add your smoked bacon lardons, and we're going to cook this for about 5 to 10 minutes until it's all nice and cooked. When your meat is done, you can place it in a food processor to make it a bit smaller, but you can also use it like that. So I just like to blend it so it's nice and small pieces. It's been about an hour and a half and our dough has risen doubled in size. Look at that. Take a cookie cutter and cut out circles. The Latvia, we have them really small, they're really bite-sized pieces, so I'm making them quite small. We're going to reuse the dough, so just take that. You want to add just a teaspoon of the mixture into your little circle. And then take one side and move it on top of the other and glue the ends together. And this is important so the mixture doesn't come out. And you can move them like that to make a beautiful shape. We're going to cover them with damp towel and leave them for 10 minutes to puff up again. Now that they have puffed up, we're just going to spread each pirozhok with some egg wash. Just gently tap on each. First thing we're going to do is make the dough. So in the pot, add your sugar together with some yeast. I'm using dry yeast from the packet. Then we're going to add warm milk and mix everything together. Add more yeast to the mixture and mix again. And then we're going to add a couple of tablespoons of flour and mix that together. Then keep adding a bit more flour until the mixture becomes nice and thick. Mix that together and you will see that it's starting to kind of come together into a pastry. We're going to set this aside until it doubles in size. You can see my mixture has quite exploded a bit. I'm going to add this into my stand mixer, then add a couple of tablespoons of flour and start mixing everything in the dough hook. Then I'm going to add my egg yolks and melted butter and mix everything again. Then add some olive oil. This will make the dough nice and soft and really easy to use. Then add some milk. In the new bowl, we're going to add some olive oil and spread that around. The dough will rise, so we want to make sure it's nice and oiled. Add more oil on top and make sure the pastry is covered so it doesn't dry out. We're going to place a nice towel which is slightly damp and leave it in a hot place or warm place to rise up. Once your dough has risen up, we're going to punch the dough a couple of times. Using your hand, just fold it in and make sure it's gone down. We're going to cover it again with a towel and leave it again for another half an hour. Next thing we're going to do is make our blini. In a bowl, add your eggs with sugar and salt. And we're going to mix that up together. Then I'm going to add some milk and sift my flour and mix everything again until it's nice and smooth consistency. Lastly, we're going to add some oil, and now our batter is ready. We're going to take 1 ladle of the mixture and pour that into a hot pan which I've buttered up. We're going to cook the pancakes on each side for a couple of minutes until they're nice and golden brown. Put your pancakes onto a plate
and let them cool down completely. Next we're going to make our meat filling. So start with chopping up your onions nice and fine. I'm going to cut them into small pieces. Add oil into your pan and wait till it gets nice and hot. Then we're going to add the onions into the frying pan and cook it for about 5 minutes until they're nice and golden. Then add your minced beef and mix it together with your onions. Add salt and pepper or any other seasoning that you might like and mix everything together really well. I'm chopping up my greens. I'm using parsley, dill and coriander, which I'm adding into my meat filling. And then I'm going to add more sour cream and mix everything together. This makes the meat really soft and tender. We're going to cook it for a couple more minutes until it's done. Next I'm going to make my mushroom filling. We're going to start off by chopping our mushrooms into nice square pieces. And then we're going to do the same thing, fry our onions and then add the mushrooms in there and cook everything together for about 5 to 8 minutes until mushrooms are nice and golden together with the onion. Make sure you season it well with salt and pepper and then set it aside to cool down. Then we're going to make our rice and egg filling. I have pre-boiled my rice already, so I'm adding that into the bowl together with my chopped greens. And I've boiled some eggs which I have chopped as well, and I'm adding that into the bowl. Then we're going to add 1 egg and season it really well with salt and pepper. Mix everything together until it's nice and smooth. And then set it aside. Now we have everything ready, our meat filling, our pancakes, rice and egg filling, and our mushroom filling. So lastly, we're going to prepare the pastry. Take your pastry, it's going to rise up again, so we're going to punch that through a couple more times. And make sure you use floured surface. I'm going to add a lot of flour, and then we're going to divide the pastry into 3 equal pieces. We're going to roll each piece out into the same rectangular square. One will be used for the bottom of the pie, the top of the pie, and then obviously for the decoration. So roll out your first piece of dough, and then I've placed it onto my parchment paper and finish rolling it up. Now we're going to assemble our pie. First we're going to add our meat filling. So take a couple of tablespoons and place that in the middle of the pastry. Spread it around and then add 2 layers of pancakes. First pancake and then the second pancake just on top. Then we're going to add our egg and rice filling, spread it around and do the same thing, top it up with 2 pancake layers. Next we're going to add more meat on top, so add a couple of tablespoons on top, press it down and then cover it with pancakes. Lastly we're going to add our mushroom and onion filling, so add that on top. And the pie is going to get bigger, so just keep adding the pancake on top and squash it down to make sure it's nice and well done. Then add your second layer of pastry on top, and we're going to pinch both sides, both of the pastries together and form a nice shape. We don't want any filling to come out while the pie is baking. Then place your parchment paper onto a baking sheet with your pie, and I'm going to cut out a nice square from the third piece of pastry, and we're going to do a little designer pattern there. You can do whatever you like, of course, so I'm just making a few cuts along the lines in different sections. This will create the holes, which you will see in a second. We're going to place this on top of our pie, and I'm going to pinch these from the sides as well to make sure it's nice and even. There you go, just like that. I'm using some egg wash on top of the pie, so just spread it around, make sure everything is covered with egg wash. And we're going to bake this for about 45 to 50 minutes at a high temperature until it's nice and golden and brown. If you feel like your pastry is getting too dark, you can always add some foil. But here you go, it's nice and ready. It smells so delicious in a house, and when you cut into the pastry, into your pie, you will see all these beautiful layers of every single filling that we made covered in pancakes.